The Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 233, recorded November 30th, 2019. Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I am your host, my name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at the Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking about Mr. Robot, and only Mr. Robot because The Good Place is officially on hiatus until early next year. But we're going to be talking about Mr. Robot, episode 408, Request Timeout, which isn't quite as spectacular as last week's episode or as like emotionally moving or anything.
I don't know. This has like the most emotionally cathartic scene in the entire season so far.
That's true, I guess. Yeah, it does have a great moment in it, but it doesn't have like the weight of last week's episode.
I think in some ways it does.
We'll go through that though. So we're going to start talking about it. We're going to start with Elliot's storyline, which is kind of a continuation of what happened last week. And this is how the show opened. Like the very first scene showed Elliot as a child.
Yeah.
And he was like talking to himself, like you don't know who he was talking to, which persona he was talking to, but he ended up hiding something. He was in a museum of Queens.
Well, he's playing hide and seek with Angela.
Yeah. And so he's in this museum. He, really cool looking museum with this giant like painted map of like New York. On the inside in this one room.
Yeah, so presumably Elliot and Angela broke into this museum after hours, and they're playing hide and seek, but Elliot has an ulterior motive, and he says he gets to a point where he's like, she won't find us here, you know, and he's talking to his persona, and he's saying, no, I know what I'm doing, you know, and he hides something in like this back room of this museum, the storage room in the museum.
And then we get our Mr. Robot title card, and we cut to the present.
And in the present day, we cut to right after where the last episode ended, where with basically Vera is dead. Elliot is basically catatonic at this point from, like, dealing with what he just learned, and Krista's
like in a panic, running back and forth, trying to...
Yeah, she's in a panic because she knows that Vera's men are still outside, and they're going to be coming back in at any time. And
yeah, Peanuts and Javi are...
Peanuts and Javi, yeah.
They're outside talking about the fiscal viability of fast food restaurants.
Yes.
And also about how they're bummed that they feel left out of the cool story that was unfolding before them in Elliot's therapy session that they were kicked out of. And they decide like they can't reach Vera. They're like, we got to go back in, and you know, like, oh, you know, we can't go in because Vera said not to. He'll be pissed or something. And they're like, well, don't you feel like left out of that story? Don't you want to know what happens next? And they finally decide to go there. And it's just as Krista, seemingly, we didn't see this actually happen, finally managed to convince Elliot to get the fuck out of there.
Right.
And so they bail. So Peanuts and Javi, they come up and they see Vera's dead. They look out the window. It's Elliot and Krista are gone. They've made it clear out of there. Krista then takes Elliot and is like, gets a cab. She's basically tugging him along with her, you know, by the arm, like, come on, let's go, come on, like dragging him along. She tells the cab driver to take him to the nearest police station. And they get there and they're about to go into the police station, and Elliot says he won't go in. And Krista finally says, like, okay, I understand. Presumably she does go in. I don't remember if we saw her actually go in without him, but presumably that's what she ends up doing, to report Vera's murder and kind of stuff that happened there, but just leaving Elliot out of it.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Elliot then sees like a specter of his younger self. basically,
Yes.
which I guess maybe that's the third personality, or it's just like
I think I've come to
device.
I've come to a conclusion that it's not actually the third personality. It's just it's just like
They had that scene where the boy was like spinning in the chair. Who's
Yes.
like, that's that boy. So if that's the case, then that wouldn't be the third personality. It would just be like a vision of something
where
he needed.
like they already had the scene where like it was like Elliot as a boy and his mom, and Elliot as a boy is like talking about Mr. Robot. He's like, is Mr. Robot, like, is he coming? And his mom was like, no, it's like somebody else, and so they kind of implied that he can't be the third personality then.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. That unless this is like a different iteration of that child or something.
This is a manifestation of, I think this is a manifestation of Elliot remembering, like, hiding what he hid, and it's kind of like through the realization, it's like manifesting in his mind like this. I
think Elliot thinks it's a manifestation of his own guilt.
Yeah.
Like that he didn't fight back.
Yeah.
And so he thinks that that's what it is, and he's following this boy, basically saying like, where are you taking me? Where are we going? And he gets to that museum, and he basically screams out. He has like a long thing where he's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah,
I didn't fight back. I should have fought back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Goes
Right.
through this
I
whole
failed
thing.
you.
And then the kid's like, no, that's not why I brought you here.
And he shows Elliot, what he hid back in 1995, and it turns out to be
a powerful weapon that will protect him forever. A Beavis and Butthead wallet.
A Beavis and Butthead wallet. That's how you know it's the 90s. It's a key to Elliot's room, and it's not just like any key to Elliot. It's the key that his dad used to get in and out of Elliot's room.
Which is what Elliot realizes is that he did fight back, and that's how he fought back. He stole his dad's key to his room so that his dad couldn't get to him anymore, and he hid that key
to where he'd never find it.
Yes. So, so this is like a big moment to kind of come to terms with what he did do to protect himself and from thinking that he couldn't protect himself. And then the next time we see Elliot, he's in Allsafe.
He's in Allsafe, yeah. And
he's working through the hack. He's working through the hack, and Mr. Robot shows up. In a very subdued and vulnerable way, Mr. Robot is like being very cautious. He's like, "Hey, kiddo."
Yeah, hey, kiddo. I know. Probably don't want to see me.
Yeah.
And he actually owns up to, what he did, which was basically suppress these memories and keep them from Elliot, and he admits like, he fucked up, he shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But
they also make a strong point that he says, I just want you to know that, I'm not your father.
I'm not your father. And then
I'm the father you needed.
And then Elliot, no, he doesn't say that.
Elliot says that.
Yeah, he says, I'm not your father. And Elliot says, no, you're not. You're the father I needed. Which Elliot's basically acknowledging and saying, yeah, you're created as like the father I wish I had.
And then, Mr. Robot puts his hand on his shoulder. Elliot kind of has a quick response to that, like he kind of jerks, but then he kind of relaxes. Right. That kind of calls back to, if you remember in the first season, Elliot had a whole thing about being touched.
Yes.
And he would freak out when people touched him, and it's something that we kind of have forgotten about. Not because like they forgot that plot point, but because people just aren't reaching out and touching him anymore.
All right, yeah, people do. Now we realize why he doesn't like being touched. Again, it comes full. It's so well written. Like the clues are there from the beginning. It's crazy. But yeah, now we know why he doesn't like being touched.
But then Elliot he breaks down a little bit at this point, and he's about to like initiate the hack. and he's like, I can't go through with this. I can't do this.
Yeah, he's like,
and he's crying.
He's I can't go through with this. It's like he's destroyed. He doesn't care about the hack anymore. You know, it's like it's like what was driving him at the beginning of the season is just gone.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like by the time this plot point had happened, other plot points in the last episode or in this episode have happened that we're going to talk about next. Because there are kind of two separate storylines this episode that make you go like, no, Elliot, go through with the hack. Yeah. You need to go through with it.
Yeah, you need to go through with the hack. You need to do it. Yeah, especially now, because there's no going back because of what happens with Darlene.
Yes. So we should start on that. I think the first scene we see from their storyline isn't even with Darlene or Janice or Dom or any of them. It's with Dom's family.
Yes.
And we see them, I think it's either her younger brother or nephew or somebody, and he's like,
it's some brat.
Mouthing off.
It's some fucking brat.
He's mouthing off and he gets in trouble, and he's walking into the room, like going like, fucking family, rah, rah, rah. And as he's doing that, he just sees this like large crew of masked men approaching his house. And he starts screaming to his family, and, and they're like, piss off, brat, and then the men come storming into the house. They break down the door, and they basically are just like getting everybody. And at this point, you're like, oh shit, this is, this is Janice like cleaning house.
Yeah.
Because Dom isn't useful to her or something. And so then we get to the scene where, Janice and Dom and Darlene are all there, with, Darlene and Dom kind of tied up. And they're talking to, Darlene, and she says that, they checked. I think I might be getting the order of these wrong, but I think what happens here is that, Janice is trying to convince Darlene to give up her brother. She starts revealing that they know about her relationship between the two of them, including a really awkward moment in which she outs that Dom, masturbates to the interrogation footage of Darlene, which is just really awkward. Dom looks humiliated, and Darlene's kind of just like, I don't know what to say.
Right.
But, they get past that scene, and Janice is trying to convince her to give it up. Nothing seems to really be working in that direction. So Janice ends up stabbing Dom, right in the lung. And, Darlene's like, take the knife out. Oh God, she's bleeding. And it's like, she says, oh, if I do that, it's just going to expedite her death. If she doesn't get medical help soon, she's gone. And I think there's something between you. So you guys you should admit that there's something between you and reveal where your brother is.
Right, exactly. And
but Darlene still won't give her up. Even Dom's telling Darlene not to give her brother up. Don't do it,
Dom's with this, knife stuck in her, just don't do it, just let me die.
And Darlene is strong enough in that moment to just kind of, to let that happen. Except then Janice ends up saying, oh, well, I've been watching your family, Dom, and I'm gonna start killing them one by one. And, I'm gonna murder them. And she's threatening to make this call to have, Dom's family murdered. And, she's talking about how, oh, her mother is so nice. Have you met her mother? Have you met Trudy, Dom's mother? She's so nice.
Yeah.
She even tried to set me up with her daughter because she wants her daughter to be happy with somebody.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? She's just, rubbing this in.
She's just,
she's talking about how there's, little kids in the family at the house right now, and how she's gonna murder them all.
She's just being the most evil person ever.
Yeah, so she's saying all of this, and finally Darlene breaks. It's the fact of it's not just killing this woman that she cares about, but it's just the idea of this whole family being murdered. This whole family
being murdered is that's enough to break, and Darlene actually gives Elliot up, She actually, restores the phone and restores the tracking. But the thing is, Elliot, on his adventure, he lost his phone.
Yeah, he was so messed up by everything that he just left his phone.
Yeah, he just left his phone. He doesn't have it on him, so they can't track him.
Yeah, that's the thing they had to track him, was his phone. That was it. That was the only means by which Darlene could try to track him down.
Yeah.
And so even though she had given that information, one of the Dark Army agents reports back to Janice and says, there's a body, it's not him, and his phone is here, but he's not,
Right.
And Janice is freaking out. She's like, you lied to me, blah, blah, and Darlene's like, think about this logically.
Janice won't accept it.
Yeah.
Janice is just freaking out at this point.
Darlene's like, think about this logically. I gave you his phone, and you found his phone.
Yes.
The fact that he's not there means there's no other way I can find him. That was the way. And there's nothing I can do. And so she's like, no, well, now I am gonna kill off Dom's family one by one.
I'm gonna have everybody killed.
And Darlene's like, it's pointless. It doesn't matter. I can't give you any information. There's nothing I have. And she's like, well, I'm going to call your bluff.
Yeah.
And she's going through and she starts calling her man and she can't reach him. And she keeps calling. And then we get a shot. The audience gets a shot of like one of her people's phone on the ground just with blood on it. And it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute. What happened there? Like at first I'm like, oh shit, does Dom have like some hardcore people in her family? Does she have like a survivalist uncle that just went like batshit and like killed all these guys as they were trying to invade their house, Like what crazy shit happened that caused this, And then Dom all of a sudden, with a lot of confidence, as she's dying with a knife in her lung, says to Janice, oh, you should probably check my phone. It's all, I bet I have a ton of missed calls. And Janice is like, what the fuck? So she grabs Dom's phone, she's checking it, and there's a bunch of missed calls.
Yes.
And so she calls back the person, and it's this Irish gangster.
It's the Irish gangster that Dom was talking to, that Dom was supposed to be using to frame her boss from the FBI.
Yeah, he's a human trafficker.
Yeah.
His name's Deegan. And this comes in useful because we realize this is who Dom called when she noticed something was suspicious about a surveillance van. She wasn't calling the FBI because she knows like there's a lot of compromised agents in the FBI and that would be useless. But she calls this Deegan guy and makes some kind of a deal with him. And
he actually saves Dom's family. It turns out he killed all the Dark Army people.
Well, it's great just how like how little fuck he gives.
Yes.
Cause Janice is like, speaking like Shakespearean, do you know the hell for which you have brought down upon your unworthy souls and bullshit, and Deegan's just like,
just fuck you, mate.
Deegan's just like, yeah, whatever, you slag.
Yeah.
That's what they all say or something. And it's like, you think I give a shit,
Yeah, you think
she's like, where are my men? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I had to get them out of the way. And she's like, what? And he's like, oh, do I have to simple it down for you? I killed them. They're dead.
Dom uses this distraction. So now Janice is distracted, and Dom uses this moment of distraction to basically take over the situation. She pulls the knife out of her chest. She uses it to stab the Dark Army henchman, like, in the leg, so he drops his gun, and then she grabs it, and then she pulls off, like, 3 amazing headshots at once, like, two of the Dark Army guys, and then Janice herself.
Oh,
like,
it's so satisfying.
I was like, oh my god. I was clapping. I was like, yes! Yes!
You used the right word, emotionally cathartic moment.
Yes, that was an emotionally cathartic moment.
I don't think we said it on the podcast. I think we might have said it before or after last week, but you and I last week were both talking about the fact that Janice needs to die.
Yes.
Like, she's a good character, and the actress does a good job.
Yeah, the actress does a good job.
Of making her so hateable, but she just needed to die.
She was like one of those people like you just really hate.
Exactly. So it was so cathartic when she died. It was like, oh my god, like, you said you were like clapping. I know I like jumped out of my seat. I was so happy. Very cathartic moment. But it comes at a bit of a cost, because if you remember, Dom had that knife in her lung, and Janice had talked about the fact that if she pulled out the knife, it would drastically accelerate the process of her dying. So now Dom is like bleeding out really bad.
Well, we see at the end, like Dom is being loaded into an ambulance, so we don't know if she's going to die or not.
But she's not in great shape.
She's definitely not in great shape either way.
She ends up calling, she calls for backup, or not backup, but she calls for, an ambulance and calls for, saying that an officer's down and there's a crime scene or whatever.
She basically, yeah, Darlene
she tells Darlene to get out of there.
Tells Darlene to get out of there, and Darlene's like trying to like be like, no, I'm gonna stay by your side, and she's like, no, just do the hack and take these fuckers down. That's what I want you to do. Like, that's
she's like, my family, if you really want to help me and my family.
She's like, if you really want,
take out the Dark Army.
She's like, if I die, my dying wish is for you to take out the Dark Army, so fucking do it.
Yeah. So that's why, like I said, when Elliot's like, I can't go through with the hack, as an audience, we're like, go through with the fucking hack!
Yeah, but he's like, I can't go through with it. Well, it's like, you're gonna go through with it. Like, Darlene's gonna have, like, some opinions about that.
And that's pretty much the end of the episode. Darlene leaves. Dom's bleeding out, not looking long for this world. Who knows? Maybe not. She looks like she was in worse shape than Wellick was in.
But it's interesting. It's interesting dichotomy there because, Elliot is completely destroyed emotionally to a point where he doesn't give a shit about anything. He's just trying to deal with this bombshell. At the same time, now Darlene is more motivated than ever. And it's kind of bizarre, but I guess
maybe this is how the third personality is going to come out.
Yeah, maybe.
In that Darlene is going to confront Elliot about getting the job done. Elliot's going to be struggling with wanting to do it, and then this third personality is going to take over.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll be like his most militant personality,
Yeah.
The personality that gives the least fucks.
So I read an interesting theory on the third personality. And I don't know if you've read this, but the theory theorizes that the third personality has been with us this whole time, and we've seen this third personality numerous times throughout the series. And it's basically another version of Mr. Robot. Or basically the theory goes that every time you see Mr. Robot with his hat on, and every time you see Mr. Robot without his hat on, those are two separate personalities. And the theory goes because they said they went back and rewatched the series, and they noticed whenever you see Mr. Robot with his hat on, he seems to be very aggressive and very he seems to be aggressive and mean. And every time he shows up with it, when he's not wearing his hat, he seems to be caring and more caring,
fatherly.
More concerned, more fatherly. Yeah, which kind of holds up because the Mr. Robot we saw at the end of this episode apologizing to Elliot wasn't wearing his hat.
It could be the case. I have seen this theory floating around,
and it's interesting. So the theory goes so Elliot's third personality is actually his father. So Mr. Robot is Elliot's idealized version of who his father was supposed to be, and then there's actually another personality which is actually Elliot's father, as he was aggressive and mean.
It'll be interesting to see.
And abusive towards Elliot, which actually makes sense. Which actually makes sense because you remember the one episode where Elliot was trying to stop a plan Mr. Robot was going on, and Mr. Robot literally beats the shit out of Elliot the whole for half the episode. Or
when he pushes Elliot off the pier.
Or when he pushes Elliot off the pier, and you think that stuff isn't that. That's not consistent with a Mr. Robot who says his entire existence is there to help Elliot, protect Elliot, right? He says he was made to protect Elliot, but beating the shit out of Elliot or pushing him off a pier isn't really consistent with that mission. So it kind of, there's kind of clues that kind of things in the past that kind of support that theory, I think. Because if we think in that episode where Elliot was getting beat up by Mr. Robot, if that was the aggressive personality, Elliot's abusive dad doing that, then that makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting. It'll be nice to see how this plays out. We have, 5 episodes left in the season.
Yeah.
So the next episode is 409 Conflict. We're going to talk about that next week. We're going to talk about all of these episodes as they come out. So stay tuned. And, yeah, that's it for Mr. Robot this week. And that's it for the show, except for what's coming up in the week ahead. So we're recording this on Saturday, November 30th, the last day of November. But on Friday, Harley Quinn came out on DC Universe, the animated series. La Reina del Sur on Netflix. On Wednesday, December 4th, Toast of London comes to IFC. The Moody's miniseries comes to Fox. And Vikings returns on History, I believe for its last season. Then on Thursday, December 5th, 2019, Tell Me a Story comes to CBS All Access. On Friday, December 6th, 2019, In the Long Run comes to Starz, Truth Be Told to Apple TV+, Reprisal to Hulu, and The Marvelous Miss Maisel to Amazon Prime. On Sunday, December 8th, The L Word Generation Q comes to Showtime, Work in Progress also to Showtime. On Friday, December 13th, 2019, Marvel's Runaways comes to Hulu, and The Expanse makes its Amazon Prime debut as a Amazon Prime original from this point forward. So that's going to debut. So Alex Wagos, your dream has come.
There you go.
What you've been waiting for is here on December 13th. Next week, we're going to continue talking about Mr. Robot because, as we mentioned, Good Place is on hiatus. But until next week, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Foxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best